without further ado, I want to introduce again the VRARA Association. There's our little logo. Thank you, Sarah. I want to also welcome Sarah. She's coming from Vancouver, running the VRARA Association in Vancouver, and everybody that is making this community come to life after the pandemic. I took the helm of being the president here in the Seattle chapter back in 2022 when everything was quiet. All of us were still operating from our living rooms or our dining rooms, and seeing these in-person events start to get this level of community is very rewarding and very encouraging to keep coming with this. At least every 3 months we try to do an in-person event. The next event that we're going to have is going to be the Seattle Design Festival in the Mohawk, end of August, mid of August, August 17th. Expect us to have a kiosk there. We're also going to have a panel. So we try to keep, as the VRARA Association, these events flowing so we can all connect, learn, and grow together in this industry. I invite you all to check our website. We have memberships in different levels that allow you to get more informed and more part of the community. It's a global association that have chapters in over 60 cities around the world. So today you're just joining the Seattle chapter activity, and every president like myself, we try to have the community, the local community, engage in what they're working. So a lot of things happen in Silicon Valley, in Los Angeles, and different ecosystems that happen around in each city for this type of technology. So without further ado and with that introduction, I want to introduce Raj. He is one of our developer relations manager, and he's going to give us a little debrief on what transpired in AWE last week, and as well as highlights that you want everybody to know about SNAP. Yeah. So Raj, please welcome Raj.
My name's Rod Hirschbot. I'm developer relations for augmented reality at Snap. So great to see you all here. I flew in from Los Angeles yesterday, and getting welcomed by this incredible view. I haven't been in Seattle a lot, so thanks for being so welcoming. But really excited to be here because Snap is really dedicated and committed to augmented reality, and we're really dedicated to having amazing developers and people who want to experiment with our platform. Lens Studio is the authoring tool that we developed in-house that allows you to deploy to a number of different places, including Snapchat, the web, iOS and Android apps, and in the past we've had the next generation spectacles in 2021, which are an AR glasses device. And what we're really committed to building is an exciting ecosystem where creation can feel natural, quick, and really, really powerful. And so I think hopefully over the course of some of what you see today, you'll start to see what I mean by that power, because I think what we've created is a really easy flywheel to basically generate whatever you can imagine in augmented reality and then deploy it so that millions upon millions of people, potentially even 1 billion people, can see your work. And so when I really think about the power of what we do, I think about there's so many amazing things happening in XR, but what I love is that Snapchat is in everyone's pocket already, and it's a deployment mechanism that genuinely appreciates augmented reality right out of the box, and people already have it. So that's really what excites me about our platform, and we're continuing to do some really cool things. This past week, I was at AWE, and we had the privilege of announcing some of what we have been working on. One of those things is Lens Studio 5.0, which is kind of our new version of our platform, and it's centered around more advanced creation, but also some really exciting generative AI features that I think put a lot of tools all in one place and allow you to be able to create some really interesting things really, really quickly. So I wanted to play a little bit of our overview of Lens Studio 5.0. Now, again, if you've ever used Lens Studio, some of this will be in context, but I want to give you a sense of what we're doing with our latest software, and then we can talk a little bit more. So I'll give the video a play. Yeah, Lens Studio is 100% free, and you can download it right from ar.snap.com, and we feel like it gives you a lot of power, so we're excited about you. So we're so glad we can welcome you, by the way, to our Snapchat office here. And we're heavily based, a lot of our AR folks are based in Los Angeles. And we're just really genuinely excited about the future of this technology. We want people to feel very comfortable with it in ways that maybe it's taking a while. And we have some amazing studios here. The DB Creations folk are here to also show off some of the really cool experiences that they're creating.
Welcome to this overview of Lens Studio, Snap's AR development software. With Lens Studio, you can build AR experiences, which we call lenses, for Snapchat, for any mobile or web application through Camera Kit, or for Spectacles, our AR glasses. I'm Chris, I'm an AR engineer here at Snap, and today I'll be walking you through some of the platform essentials and game-changing new features. So with that, let's jump into Lens Studio to see what's new. The first thing you'll notice when we launch Lens Studio is drastically improved loading times and a revamped home screen. In the home screen, you can keep track of your projects, get easily set up with building for different platforms, and find sample projects that showcase some of the exciting new features that Lens Studio has to offer. Speaking of exciting features, let's get started with looking at Generative AI Suite and the addition of plugin support. Our aim with the Gen AI Suite is to ease creation for AR creators at every step and make it even faster to deliver on your vision. So what have we added? Well, first up, you can now create the next trending selfie lens with your very own ML face effect. This allows you to generate a highly realistic ML model that's unique every time. Next up, we have also added Head Morph, which allows you to unlock character creation like space aliens, wizards, monsters, and more with a text-to-image prompt that generates 3D animated character heads using our face mesh technology. We have also added Immersive ML, which allows you to generate a custom stylization that transforms the user's face, body, and surroundings in real time. You can become a Bob's Burgers character, enter into a Van Gogh painting, or whatever you dream up. We also have 3D asset generation, where you can enter a text prompt to generate a 3D model complete with materials. You can provide reference images to ensure it matches the aesthetic you're going for, and import that directly into Lens Studio. Additionally, Lens Studio includes PBR material generation and texture generation. This allows you to create a PBR material for any 3D model that you input. So you can use the 3D asset you created with the 3D asset generation tool, quickly generate a few additional materials for it, add a generated background texture, and your asset creation pipeline is complete. Now that's already a lot of new features to remember, but we made it even easier to get help thanks to our new AI assistant. We trained an AI model on all of our documentation and learning materials so you can get help even easier. This is a great resource for getting answers to questions on getting started, figuring out the function of something in the editor, or even getting some help with debugging a script, all without leaving Lens Studio. All of these Gen AI features were built using our new plugin system, which in itself is going to be a real game changer for your workflow. Lens Studio plugins are written in JavaScript using a new editor API, which exposes the data of the editor and the open project, such as the scene and asset information, to you as a developer. This means that you can really start to fine-tune the creator experience to suit your needs. So in addition to those Gen AI features mentioned, here are a few more plugins that we think you'll find really useful. We know a lot of you already create UI layouts in Figma today, so we partnered with Figma to create a plugin that imports any frame you have directly as UI in Lens Studio, with the proper scene hierarchy and transforms already set up. Additionally, if you ever felt like your project is getting too big, your code too confusing, and you're not sure what connects to what anymore, well, Andrew Douglas from Weird Eye Studio created the perfect plugin for you, the Flowy Lens Visualization plugin, which creates a flowchart of the scripts in a web view directly in Lens Studio. Plugins like these are incredibly useful because your lenses are getting more complex. So with that, we are also excited to share a few other new features and changes that can help with developing larger AR experiences and allow for better collaboration with teammates working on the same lens project. With Lens Studio, you can now organize your content into multiple scenes. This is especially useful for staying organized when building a front and rear camera experience all within the same lens. And to further help with this, you can now edit your prefabs directly in your own prefab editor view, separate from the rest of the objects in your scene. We've also introduced some additional advanced rendering support and made adding real-time ray tracing to your project as simple as possible. Simply enable the caster checkbox for which objects should be shown in reflections, and enable the receiver checkbox for which ones should see those reflections. In addition to this, we have added support for Gaussian splatting. You can use any existing app that allows you to scan an object or environment as a splat to output a PLY file, and you can drag that directly into Lens Studio to add it to your project. In addition to these visual changes, we have now completely redesigned our animation tools to provide wider flexibility for the animations you can create. We now have the animation curve editor, which allows you to animate various properties of an object without needing to create separate animations in an external tool. Additionally, we have added the animation player component, which is designed to make playback of animations as easy as possible. On the API front, we have added several new APIs to support dynamic content and to cover even broader use cases. The Friends API allows you to create content that includes the user's friends, and the Bitmoji API allows you to pull in 2D or 3D Bitmojis. These APIs can be combined to create very personal and enjoyable experiences for the audience of your lenses. With all of these new features and changes, Lens Studio is made to enable AR experiences that can match the aspirations of your creativity. However, sometimes that creativity takes a whole team to deliver on, which is why we now have Git-friendly project support so you can easily compare changes and collaborate with team members. While we're always adding new features that help you push the boundaries of what's possible with AR, we're also working to improve the developer experience at every turn. So with that, let's look at some of the must-haves that our community has asked for. We're always looking at ways to improve speed of development, and in addition to the Gen AI tools we introduced, projects now load 18 times faster, so there's no more waiting to get started. We've also added support for multiple Lens Studio instances to be open at the same time, allowing you to easily copy and paste between projects. For those of you working on connected experiences, we now have support for concurrent device simulation. You can easily preview a connected lens from the perspective of multiple users. For further debugging, we now have real-time inspection, where you can see the scene hierarchy change dynamically as the lens runs. From there, you can pause the preview and inspect values to make sure everything is going according to plan. In addition to real-time inspection, we now also have dynamic asset preview, allowing you to better visualize the assets in your project without needing to add them to the scene. And oh yeah, last but definitely not least, we have added TypeScript support, so you can now choose to develop your lenses in JavaScript, TypeScript, or a combination of the two. Thank you for tuning into this platform overview. As always, we're available on the Snap AR Discord, and with all of these new features, there's lots to discuss, so please reach out to us there. In addition, we want to continue to build Lens Studio to fit your needs and use cases, so continue to provide feature requests and feedback in user voice. Thank you for watching. We look forward to seeing what you create.
Amazing. Thank you all for taking a look at that. I think what we wanted to share was that Lens Studio is a tool that we're building that's both incredibly simple to pick up and create basic experiences, but also powerful enough to do a lot of what we're trying to do all over in XR, and you'll get to see a lot of those really cool experiences today. We thank you to be here. We're not here just to talk about that, but what we really are interested in is how we can help you understand the business of AR and a lot of the different ways that we feel like you grow as a developer and make money. So I'll pass it off to Roberto.
Thank you, Rash. This kind of thank you, Rash, for the introduction and the overview of Transparent AWE. Now I want to invite our speakers, Rash, again to the panel. We're going to have a panel. We're going to give a few questions and then open up for questions for everybody that is attending here. So Rash, if you want to take a seat first, from Snap, from Novabai, we have Julia Viemal. Thank you, Julia, for joining. And from DB Creation, we have Dustin and Blake, founders, and everybody here, founders of Snap Creations. We have a special lens that we created especially for this event. I invite you all to download it, try it out. There's a QR code right here that activates the lens straight into your phone. So I'm gonna leave it over here.
It can be deployed on Snapchat or web.
It goes in both Snapchat and web. So with that said, I wanna start with a quick introduction, so you know who who our speakers are. Let's start with Dustin and Blake. Dustin, you have developed right now amazing AR games in the Snap platform. I want to hear, can you give us a brief introduction of who you are, who DB Creations are, how you got started in AR, and what are you working on these days, briefly?
Sure, yeah. I mean, we'll be here for a few hours, but I can run through all those things. So that'll be straightforward. You guys are all here for a while, right? We got plenty of food. I'm from DB Creations. My name is Dustin Kogan-Sparger. I'm one of the two co-founders of our AR game studio, DB Creations, along with Blake. I mean, the brief history of myself is I went to school for games and then graduated and moved out here to work at Bungie, where I was at for 7 years as a producer working on the Destiny franchise. Always loved working in games and also hanging out with Blake, and we kind of got into sort of the AR, VR side of the world as a hobby first, and that was something we really enjoyed messing around with and thinking about, wow, it'd be really cool to build stuff for that. Maybe someday that would be a thing to do. And then a few years ago, we kind of found interesting points in our careers where we felt like it was a good time to make some moves, and the industry was in an interesting spot in terms of more devices, more platforms, more hardware than ever before. And we decided we wanted to try to make this thing real and build an AR game studio. And I'd love to say that it's super easy, but it's been quite a challenge, but it's been a lot of fun, and we really enjoy trying to figure out what do games mean on AR platforms. Like this whole new way of thinking about game development is something that I think drives us a lot. So yeah, we're really excited to be working in the space, and yeah, I've enjoyed it so far. I'll let you talk about yourself a little bit if you want.
Yeah, I like to talk about myself. Hello. Yeah, I mean, like I said, we went to school for games. I worked at Xbox, and then I worked on HoloLens, which was Microsoft's attempt at this whole space. While I was there, I was like, oh, consumer AR, it was like 2018. The Magic Leap came out, and I was like, consumer AR is about to take off. I got to get in on it. I was a little early, so I quit in 2020. Still waiting a little bit for consumer AR to take off, but it seems like this might be the year. But yeah, we started this company. We've been working with Snap for a number of years now, building world-facing lens experiences. Besides Snap, I'm going to say the evil name. We also work with Meta, and we've been
A few others.
And a few others, yeah, Qualcomm and Xreal. So you know, all the headsets in the biz, looking at Vision Pro. But yeah, we're mainly focused on world-facing experiences. We think that's where a lot of the magic is, and we're really interested in how to make players' environment, or any environment they're in, the map for a game space. And that's kind of been our focus for the last few years. We look a lot at like strategy games, both traditional real-time strategy stuff, as well as like city builders. And you can see that on the table over there. Our lenses have had a total of over like 660 million plays on the Snap platform. Part of what attracted us to the Snap platform was that, like Ron was saying, you know, there's 300, what is your number, 300 million active people using Snapchat for playing AR things every day. So that's a huge audience. That's probably the largest AR audience to be able to capitalize on. And yeah, so that's kind of what brought us to Snap.
Thank you, Dustin and Blake. And what I love of this panel is the perspective that you're going to get from it. So we have video game experts giving you their take. And I'm going to invite Julia to introduce herself and give us a similar story, completely outside of video games.
Yes, so my name is Julia Villalobos. I'm the CEO and creative director, co-founder of Novaby. We are an augmented reality studio based here in Seattle. That said, I am the only one. We are a virtual team, used to be in San Francisco, and I'm just one of an amazing team of talented artists, developers, a whole bit. So just want to acknowledge that. And yeah, so my background, most of my team background comes from kind of video game industry, game design. We are a very art-heavy, art-forward team, so largely on the creator side, 3D modelers, animators, the whole bit. We do have developers, but we focus on art-forward experiences, and in particular, location-based experiences. So a lot of what we've created, the stuff that we're super excited about, is actually not here. It's outside in other locations and world-facing experiences as well. So I put some video in that was playing, so hopefully you can kind of see the types of things we get excited about. I'm a little bit of an oddball. My background actually prior to going into augmented reality, I was an architectural engineer for 25 plus years. I'm showing my age. And so I transitioned into AR probably about 2016, 2017. I had that same mind-blowing experience that everybody has when they first see AR. I mean, I can just like remember it like it was yesterday. And I thought it was a pretty unusual path, but since then I've come to realize and learn that actually coming from architecture background is a pretty common path, both for game design, for wayfinding, and also we are been dealing with three-dimensional spatial computing software since, again, showing my age, in the 1980s. So yeah, so it's kind of a natural process or migration for a lot of folks with that background, and most people immediately, from that background, immediately see the potential, particularly in the kind of arts, culture, and architecture field. So, yeah.
Thank you, Julia. And now I want to pass it to Raj. Tell us your story, Raj. How you got involved in XR, how you ended up in Snap.
Yeah.
Quite a 3 questions. That, and how you interact with the developers that you work with every day.
Yeah, so I'll kind of go from the beginning and get there. I mean, I actually came from more of a film background. I went to film school. I did some technical stuff there. I worked as a sound designer. I was telling a story the other day. I worked as a Foley artist for a little bit, which is kind of unusual. And did a lot of work there. And I really cared about storytelling. Was like my focus and real passion still is. But I also got involved, where I kind of got involved in graphics, was I started working at a company that did graphics for sports broadcasting. And I grew in that company for a long time, and I ended up doing graphics experiences for every major sports network you can possibly think of all over the world. And we focused on how do you get data and present it to people in a pleasing way, and in a quick way. I worked with the MLB, NHL, NFL, worked Stanley Cup, Super Bowls, all of them. So worked all across that world, which is similar in the sense that it's real-time graphics, but actually very different than gaming. And that broadcast TV world really taught me a lot about that. I also did a lot of work with streaming as well. We did real-time graphics for like streaming, so I worked a lot with Twitch and different things like that. So, and I worked a lot with Twitch creators and different things like that. So that gave me a really big background experience. And then I landed at the previously now thou shalt not be named. I worked at Meta for a little while, and basically translated a lot of my experience about creating and producing experiences for augmented reality, and brought it to a place where we were focused on building this new augmented reality experience that's now available to consumers. It's really interesting because for so long it was doing these kinds of graphics, it was doing them in television studios where they could have the graphics power, and then it would get broadcasted out. And it was ironic that at some point we got to this place where everyone suddenly had that power on their phone. And it brought this technology that for a while was very gate-kept and very like specific to a very specific use case, strapping cameras to other, stadium cameras and things like that. And suddenly now everyone had that power on their phone. So that was a really cool transition to see happen. And so at Meta, I worked with their Spark platform and their augmented reality and some of their Quest stuff. And then I am now at Snap doing developer relations for augmented reality. And what I really view as my mission and kind of my work over the last 4 or 5 years has been presently, again, I came from a film background, and in the early days of film, there was, in the 1920s, they didn't know who was going to be the people building this stuff. When that first came out, they were confused, they were lost, they didn't understand. So they would go, they grabbed journalists, they grabbed novelists, they grabbed all these people from all these different places, and they're like, hey, there's this thing, like figure it out. And what ended up happening over time is they all learned from each other, and then they created an entirely new form of work. And I view my job to be very similar. I'm watching and finding people who come from all sorts of different walks of life, and come from all sorts of different fields, whether digital designers, 2D illustrators, 3D illustrators, people who game design, people who are in sports, people are from all these different places, and I'm trying to figure out what are we going to create together, and how are we going to make a platform that allows a career to evolve for people in the long term. That's what I think about. I think about how do you get involved with our tools now and make really great things, and how do you monetize that over time, and how does this become the dominant thing instead of a thing, is what I think about. So yeah.
Thank you guys for all that introduction. It's super interesting. Everybody's different paths to get to where you are today. I want to open now a question in terms of, let's start with the studio setup with DB Creations. Like you said, you're a studio, you're not a one-man shop. How have you found Snap to help you with your creations? How do you work with your team? How do you kind of assemble a project in general terms?
Ooh, general terms. I mean, yeah, like you said, we're a studio of now around 12 folks, 6 full-time and 6 contractors. So it's a bit of, I'd say, that customizing the work to match what the team can do. So looking at what are we trying to do. In a lot of cases with the things that we built, we were targeting a specific feature that Snapchat had either been pushing out recently or wanted to focus on, the connected lenses, when those were something that was very interesting. You know, we were saying, okay, we need to build a connected experience, so maybe more people working on this because it's going to be a little bit more complicated work, or something more like our face filter lens, which was a little bit more art heavy than it was like design or programming heavy. So it's a lot of customizing what the team is working on against that, and also like what are the deadlines we're working against, what does the studio need to actually like achieve on this, when does Snapchat want to have this available to look at and ship and share to show off those features of the platform. So it's a lot of your basic, I guess, project management style stuff for us, like because we're juggling at any given time, 1 to 3 projects typically. So, we're kind of figuring out who should be working on this, what needs to be done, what's the time frame, how much money do we have to spend on it, all that sort of thing. Kind of typical stuff you'd expect for a studio, but applied to AR. If there's any specifics you would want to cover on like that, maybe on the tool side?
Yeah, I was going to talk about that. One of the really nice things about Lens Studio 5 is, like they said, they added better version control support. So we tend to do bigger projects. We have more than one dev working in Lens Studio at a time, which was very difficult in Lens Studio 4 for a number of reasons. And so something that's been nice about 5 is that that's really sped us up a lot of it so that we can merge all of our files together. And I think as bigger teams start working on Lens Studio to make these types of experiences, that will be really helpful.
Thank you guys. So that is the video game way of handling the projects. Julia, can you give us a little run on what your life is like working with Snap?
So we're an agency or studio, depending on your background, the many myriad of backgrounds that people come from. I prefer the word studio because that's my background, but we're a little bit different in that we're very customer driven. So our customers tend to be in the arts, culture, heritage space, entertainment space. And so we're basically a design studio, and our medium is AR. And so when we're coming in, we're working with the customer and trying to understand their needs just in general, and then how AR can be used to satisfy those needs and generally amplify whatever experience they're trying to create. I would say right now, AR is usually a complement or an accessory to something else that they're already doing, as opposed to kind of maybe being a standalone type of thing. And so, we're working with them to understand what their brand is about, their identity, and really custom designing something. So everything we do pretty much is bespoke. We do occasionally do some kind of speculative work, but that's more just to kind of stretch ourselves and make sure we're keeping up with the technology. But most of our work is commission-based work. So one of the, I think, interesting things in terms of like with Snap is when we've been doing this about 7 years, which I joke AR years are like dog years, so that's a long time. It feels a lot longer, but it's all been joy, seriously. But so when we first started working in this in AR 7 years ago, really the only option at that time was Unity, and in particular even before like AR Foundation in Unity was even new, and so we were kind of just doing whatever we needed to do to create the experiences we thought should exist. And but AR technology has been advancing so rapidly, particularly during COVID. I know all the developers got super bored and were just at home for 2-3 years coding constantly. So there was like an explosion of platforms, AR platforms. And so one of those, Snap, I feel like really advanced very far and caught our eye, and Snap reached out to us, having seen some of the work we have been doing and experimenting with. And since that time, I would say like for AR, for our customers, we've really moved away from Unity, largely because Lens Studio is so robust. I mean, there's really not much we can't do on Lens Studio that we used to have to use Unity for. So that makes it a lot simpler, a lot faster for our customers, and therefore more affordable for them. It's also a great tool when you come from the more creative side. So we do development, but we'd be more the equivalent of like a front-end developer, and then we hire out back-end development when we need that. But most of the time, like with Snap, we don't need that. So our artists, our creators, creative technologists are able to kind of work with the templates that are in there, and then maybe just plug in some of the custom coding that's needed. I'm most excited really about with Lens Studio 5. They've made a web publishing option super easy, like literally toggle a button and it publishes to the web. And every single customer we've had over the last 7 years, because we do location-based work, the first thing they always say is, we want web. And then they find out how expensive Well, is like we are a tech-neutral studio, so we're always also not just working on the creative with them, but figuring out what is the best tech solution for their particular project or situation. And so this really makes being able to use Lens Studio, which is, I would say, one of our top 2 preferred authoring tools right now, much more suitable and accessible to our customers that we publish to web now.
And how much is Snap AR Web? Like, how much is the web feature?
Sorry,
I'm prompting.
Oh, it's free. Is that
Yeah,
what
it's
you
free,
mean?
yeah.
Yes, it's hosted. So they've had web for a while, but it was in their kind of like, you have to kind of build your own web app. And so now you don't have to do that. It's like hosted. So that's just, they are like so exciting.
Thank you. And I want to ask you, Raj, we heard from the studio's perspective that we have to put the teams together. One personality that we have today is the individual creator. What's it like what have you seen for individual creators to take advantage of the tools, and how do you work with them?
Yeah, it's kind of a unique thing. As we look at a lot of where we conventionally think about AR makes money, we think of like large applications that get deployed, but what's really great about, and they're fantastic, but what's great about Lenses is that there's a lot of individuals who can then create full experiences and distribute them, and right now there's a lot of marketing dollars that go towards those kinds of lenses. So it's kind of an alternative way to fund a career, right? And many of these studios, we talk about that, certainly instead of needing to fund your career through large applications, you could potentially fund your individual career by working with branded activations and create small experiences for Snapchat. What's really great about that as well is if you're a really, really great developer or if you're excited to experimenting, you've got a platform where you can just make something and publish it and it gets distribution. And so what I find a lot of developers like doing is maybe they're doing some of their professional work at a game studio or something like that, but they're finding in their personal work they're able to just create lenses really rapidly because it's where they can experiment and where they can kind of come up with new ideas. And so that's certainly part of the experience that exists. There's a great deal of variety of content. We also offer certain incentives. We have, if your lens happens to get a lot of engagement on the Snapchat platform, which, total transparency, that's for some kinds of lenses versus others. More advanced experiences tend not to be the ones that everyone gets those really high numbers, but we pay out for certain things like that. You can potentially get some funds that way. And then all of these can kind of help bridge you towards the point where you're building your own client base and you're building for uses. So I think that what's offered by the Snapchat ecosystem and social AR in general is this really great experience where you have direct connection to your audience and you can make things that people get to see and really experience and realize like your talents and your skills and your own voice. And going back to just kind of what I think about when it comes to differentiating yourself, voice is so important. Every studio here has a distinctive voice and something they've gotten really good at that they've been able to turn into monetization. And when a developer asks me, like, how do you monetize? Like, how do I stick out? And that's the real question you should be asking, because it's about channeling what you're really, really good at and allowing that work to sing. And you'll find clients based on the fact that you're confident in what you're building. So we can talk more about that as we go, but yeah, that's
Perfect. We have a question in the audience. Let's start a little bit of questions before I ask you guys the last question I had. Let's start with a question from the audience.
Sorry to interrupt, but hi, my name is Albert. I'm a single creator and I create a lot of AR filter experiences. I work across different platforms, TikTok, and Instagram and the video. And I love the new Snap updates, which is totally blown away. I use almost every AR filter tool that's out there, and it can be really frustrating to not be able to do everything all within the tool and have to outsource so much of that. So love the direction that Snap is pushing that. And as someone who works across all these different platforms, I was wondering, even though you guys have the standalone web feature, which is incredible, so glad to have that. But is there any thought to having a sort of ability to transfer filters between different platforms? I know that the companies themselves don't really play nice, but from the creator standpoint, when I'm creating an experience for a lens or something, I might want to offer it across platforms, and currently creating it on different platforms is pretty painful. And each platform has their own space requirements, they differ quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, what you're talking about is sort of what's often asked as the holy grail of social AR, to be able to like easily create and build. I know companies have attempted tools and such. We can talk about that later. Obviously, Snapchat's very strategy is to create a really powerful ecosystem, but also an open ecosystem. That's part of the web. That's part of being able to build an iOS and Android. I'm able to answer this question this way, not representatives from the other two would, but we have the most powerful of those three platforms. We add the most features, so we kind of don't want to be held back by some of those, limitations in many ways. But what you're saying totally makes sense. Right now, that social AR thing, and excuse me as I casually like switch hats back and forth from being Snap now. All I'm saying is that we understand that that's like something that would be really easy on the developer. But I think that each of these companies is kind of incentivized to keep people working on their platforms for a reason. And so that's, I think, why it doesn't exactly happen. But I think that it's really exciting to see social AR develop so much creativity. And as the platforms all grow, I feel like it's getting closer to the point where like most 3D objects can move in between the platforms. It's usually just differences in how they, handle logic and different things like that. I don't know if that's any sense.
I was just going to say one thing, it's a little bit different worlds, but one thing we always think about, because we're in a similar-ish boat of like building content for many different forms of devices and headsets and that sort of thing across companies, as we alluded to, Evil Meta and all that. We think about things in this sort of what I call the do no evil approach, where we look at our lowest common denominator of when we're making decisions about what we are building and saying, okay, what things can we do that make it so that if we were to bring this to a different device or a different platform, that we wouldn't have to redo it, or we'd have to do the least amount of work. And so it's sort of a business strategy thing, but something we always keep in mind is that, okay, if we don't have to do it in a way that prevents us from bringing it somewhere else, we should go that path so that if those opportunities appear where we can say, oh yeah, we do want to bring this somewhere else, we can more easily do that to help on that business side of things as opposed to have to redo everything from scratch. So that's something we think about strategically as well, is how do we organize these things together so that when we do want to bring it to another platform, it's as painless as possible, even if they aren't fully interoperable with each other.
So I'm going to jump back to the other question and circle back to yours. So I think you made the point actually that really it's about finding your intersection with whatever expertise you have with AR. So like for us, I have a background in placemaking and architecture and basically urban planning and studies. So it's finding that intersection because really it's the combination of expertise that can be monetized as opposed to just being an AR creator. That's a much harder road to pave. And so maybe I know you kind of are in that same boat there. And so from my perspective, we work on Spark as well and a little bit on TikTok, not too much, but like I said, having web as an affordable option for location-based experiences just totally takes it out of the equation, which is great because it's all about, for those types of experiences, it's all about how quickly can I get somebody into that experience before they're going to either get frustrated or distracted or whatever. And so I'd say it's a little bit different, like if you're focusing on selfie type of lenses, then really the social media platform that you're choosing to put it onto has a lot to do with what you're creating. So I would say, for instance, with Snapchat, like the audience is very much, they're very educated and used to AR, right? And it's a lot more about having fun, and play and all of that, whereas that might not be the same audience you have on Instagram, so you might not even be, that makes sense, yes.
So I kind of have daughters on level 2, like Julia, has really done a lot of work with Collins. So when you say, and especially maybe for Julia, when you say that you break a lot of the AR aspect, you even brought up April. So I'm actually curious about that aspect because when we used to always talk about what they are is you don't need to download an app.
You don't want.
Download an app,
Yeah.
right? You just basically have a QR code, you scan, and the client is the experience. So my question is it the same as Snapchat, or do they have to be a Snapchat user? Like, it's a brand advertising application. You just go and scan the QR code, and all of a sudden they have it in Snapchat. AR lens.
Yes, for the new web publishing, it has a little bit of a ghost brand in the corner, but other than that, like
Wow.
you're not in Snapchat. Yeah,
That's
it's fantastic.
Yeah, also highlighting, we just did a test that's out there that you can, for a brand, and can't determine when or if when this will be released, but we just did an output example too, where we actually loaded the essential core of the Snapchat engine into an app clip. So once you scanned, it was able to load up as an app clip and run. So what's really great about WebAR is just the need, the lack of need. You don't have to have a Snapchat for that.
That in some ways would be even better, because then you get like the full power of an app, the performance of an app-based experience, and the accessibility of web. Right now, I did want to say too, so I was talking with the Snap team earlier. So the web right now version, they do have updates coming. There's a little bit of latency to it right now, so that it's getting optimized. But along those same lines, like we've recently become, sorry, I'm talking about another competitor, a big fan of Adobe Aero because of their app capability. So it's kind of the same thing. It's not quite as smooth as the web-based version of Snap, but it effectively, you don't download an app.
As of like 5 months ago, April wasn't that similar. Like,
Yeah.
tracking, watching
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about the technical reasons for that, just because I think it's interesting. When you're avoiding a lot of the infrastructure that mobile AR has been built off of, comes from the structure that Google and Apple have built into their AR SDKs on their own phones. And they've done a lot of that work core to the operating system. So when you use a web browser, it doesn't necessarily have access to all of those same tools in all of the same ways. And so it's more of a challenge. And it's certainly a challenge that April has been working on for a long time. We're excited about where we are at this point, and we're continuing to make strides as we continue to make the web AR experience really robust.
Can I ask one last question? That's maybe for you. Where is Snapchat in terms of AI-enabled experiences and personalization?
I mean, I think we're at the top of experimentation in AI and in experimentation. The app.
I mean, sorry, for ads, so like for brands and if you're creating like experiential marketing campaigns for a brand.
I think
What's the art of possible with the AI elements?
I think we have very little that's full to market right now, but I think we're definitely a company that's experimenting really heavily with that. I mean, if you open up your Snapchat app and you spend time in it, you'll start to see some really interesting experiences. We launched Dreams, which was an LLM experience, or which was a generative AI experience, an app that allows you to basically generate images based on yourself. But we also are doing a lot of the immersive ML stuff, which is very unique. And Bobby, our CTO at AWE, talked a little bit about some experimentation that we're doing in the future where LLM generated stuff is instantaneous. And so you might be able to actually prompt on video as it's rendering live, which is pretty unique. So I think that, of course, Snapchat's goal in a lot of this experimentation, and this is both in Lens Studio but also out, because I don't want to make it sound like Lens Studio is just this only AI thing. It's not. There's a lot of really great AI features. But the application of Snapchat itself is also have embraced AI, and Snapchat makes its own models and has its own development teams that are making really interesting and cool strides in the place. And I honestly think when it comes to consumer AI, very few people are targeting it the way that they are.
Thank you. We have a question for Kyle.
So my question is a little bit kind of going to what you were talking about the SDK built into the Google and iOS phones. I'm curious at all about Snap Camera, which used to be available on desktop. I've used it personally for a lot of live music events to do real-time AR. I'm wondering if there's any consideration to bring that back, or any possibility of that coming back, especially with the introduction of more advanced stuff like ray tracing coming to the studio.
So it's back, asterisk. We just released a couple weeks ago a Chrome extension that allows for the essential use of bringing lenses into any Chrome video feed. That doesn't satisfy everything that the old Snap Camera does, but it actually does quite a bit of it, and it allows you to import your own lenses into any Google video view, which should do those things. That being said, some of the things you're talking about right now, like ray tracing, those are definitely things that have been optimized for the mobile experience, like the mobile app experience. We were the first to kind of offer ray tracing on a platform like that, and we were really excited to have it on mobile. And I think that there's just going to be continued development. But Snap Camera is back, asterisk, and in a form. It's also available in Microsoft Teams and a lot of other really cool partnerships that allow it to be in more places. I don't know if anyone has anything else to say about that topic.
Any other question? Over here in the front, no questions.
Kyle's got another one.
Okay, Kyle.
So this one is a bit more on the developer side. I know you guys touched on this a little bit, but I'm curious, when it comes to making AR experiences, how do you make the choice between utilizing more advanced hardware in the experiences you make, and on the other side, keeping it accessible to less advanced hardware? So making it accessible to mobile versus utilizing some of the advanced stuff that the Meta or Vision Pro headsets have access to.
Sorry.
No worries. You can give the tech answer. I'll give the boring business guy answer, which is money drives a lot of things when the studio gets bigger. And so if there's a platform that's excited and has an opportunity that they're pushing towards, that they believe an audience exists for, like we're gonna trust with them and build with them. I think we really enjoy building on Snapchat because of that like massive amount of ability to show our content to other folks, and as we grow the brand and talk about like, the unique voice of the studio, like Rob was talking about, like having content that we can just show people really easily, like here's the kinds of cool stuff we can do, has been really valuable, you know. So like I think that's been a big thing for us, and it's actually turned into more business. Our John Wick lens came specifically from a different lens that we built. It was a connected lens that won the Lensathon or Lens Fest one year, and Lionsgate reached out to us and said, "Hey, you made something cool. We'd like to do more with that." So there's a lot of good reasons to target those things. You know, when we're looking at picking projects, and that's definitely like a factor. But we're also a studio that's very excited about headsets, and so we tend to work on a lot of like the Quest 3 because there's a lot of gamers there specifically, and that market is built a little bit more strongly around gaming. So that has been a large driver for our specific business being around games, interactive content. But we've loved being able to bring that stuff to platforms that maybe aren't as gaming focused like Snapchat for a whole host of reasons. Maybe the technical stuff you want to say.
Yeah. I mean, I think for headsets, one of the weird things is that none of the feature sets are normalized yet, really, despite like OpenXR or whatever. So when you're building for a headset, you're kind of building specifically for that platform. Like Presence platform on Meta is completely different than the Apple Vision Pro ARKit API. So like you can think of similar applications, but you end up doing pretty different implementations. One of the really nice things about the Snap ecosystem or Lens Studio is that in terms of feature set capabilities, they tend to work across all devices. So when we think of an idea, we're not usually thinking too much about like, oh, this will only work on this subset of smartphones. I think everything we build works on almost all the smartphones that people have. So even like stuff works better on LiDAR-enabled phones, which is like iPhone 12 Pro and up, but we're not exclusive to that. The other really nice thing about Lens Studio is that for devices like Spectacles 2021, it's very easy to make an application for that device, and then it also just works in normal Snapchat. So you can build like a mobile AR experience and a head-worn AR experience. It all just kind of works. Table Choppers is actually that. So you don't really have to think too much about what capability subset am I hitting. You just kind of say, I want to build this type of experience, and then it's portable to all these different device types.
I agree with that for sure. I would say the main difference really is more on the user experience side. So we haven't done too much in Spectacles, but when we were, it was just a very different design process because you've got a narrower field of view and just how a person interacts with it and all that. So I'd say that those are bigger factors than technical capabilities.
Two answers to this. First of all, I guess this kind of hits on the question where we were talking about moving from different platforms. These are all the characteristics of an early ecosystem, right? Like this is what happens when we're all still figuring out what works and where things should be and how it's going to play out, right? Over time, this will most likely flatten. I say that with like knowledge and history of technologies and different things like that, right? You look at game development now, and there's Unity is a platform where you can publish to almost everywhere and it works everywhere, and like that's the kind of world that I think makes more sense, but we're not there yet. And I think that right now there's a lot of great players proving a lot of really great things. The other point, and so in that way, I would say that like it's a feature, not a bug right now. Like it allows companies to pursue unique visions for what they think this thing is going to look like. But then the other thing I would say from a complete business hat again is the other thing I'll say is that a lot of it comes down to your clients. And I've noticed that especially when it comes to marketing, which is a specific type of way that you build, I feel like there's two stories people want to tell. They either want to sell their product, which means they want to get to as many people as they can, or sometimes they want to do what I like to call the innovation story, which is they want to tell a story about how they're doing something so cool that no one else can do it. And that's where those kinds of stories, those kinds of clients who exist plentifully and who love to throw their marketing budgets at things that it's not even about people. I have done AR experiences that have been used by like 20 people, but at the end of the day, they had a front page article in the newspaper about it, and that's something they really care about. So ultimately, you have to kind of play that four-dimensional chess with the person buying. There are definitely people who want to see the coolest experience possible. And yes, right now, the most futuristic stuff are things that feel like they're on headsets or on 2021 specs or things like that. But if you want to reach, there's literally only a few million of these devices out there. And Quest 2 is very plentiful, but like MR, Quest 3 is the only thing that really does MR, and that's fairly new. There are only, like, a lot of brands look at the number of headsets that are out there and say, I would never touch that because I'm going to reach like 1% of my audience. And so I think those are important questions to really think about from a business perspective as you consider what experience to build.
Great answers. Last question. Let's do for an hour. Thank you to our panel. Before we clap, last words of wisdom that you would like to share before we close our panel today.
I think it's a really exciting time. Obviously, a lot of things are changing in the industry, but that's only good. And so what I hope, and I know you all come from different experience levels, some of you coming out of school, some of you not. What I would say is it's a tremendous opportunity for you to focus on what you're really good at building and to find your voice and to start making content that really puts your own stamp on this industry. Because ultimately, those are the voices that I think are going to really matter as this format continues to advance, as the eyeballs start to go to it more, and as we start to be looking for, like, there's a certain element when technology is new that's novelty. Right now, a lot of people are using, generative AI to just type in cat and show you a cat picture. And like, that's cool, but that's a tech demo. That's not a real experience. And people here on this panel are some of the top developers in the world because they're building experiences. They're going beyond just the technology, and they're building things that are useful to people, or they're building things that move people or excite people. And ultimately, that's what the goal is. And I think it's only going to become sexier as time goes on. And we get there.
That's words of wisdom.
So I think I'll kind of extend on what Rob talked about is, I would say AR, like I said, this has been doing this a long time, but the reality is it is still early, and from most people's perspective, and it's still a roller coaster. And so, just like any other new technology, new startup, you have days where you think, okay, we've reached the summit, and then you're like, oh no. And so you really, to do this, you have to love it, I would say. And so do what you love within AR, because you're going to need that to ride, you're going to need that passion to kind of ride the roller coaster of the monetization world, because it's not just going to happen. And it's work every single day pushing the boulder forward. So that, and then I'd say, I don't know about words of wisdom, but for us, particularly folks that are working in location-based AR, I think it's true for you guys too, but user discovery and user engagement are the biggest nuts to crack. Like, that is the only obstacle left. So we can pretty much do anything artistically, technically at this point that has exceeded user expectations. So, I think that's what I'd love to get some dots on the Snap Map. I love the Snap Map. So if we could get AR on there, that would just change our world. I was encouraged to see Google is now going to start adding AR dots for certain platforms. So I think, hopefully you guys will see the light too. So.
Looking for a feature request. I
Yes.
like it. Get him on the spot and then drill him. That's good.
Yeah, right.
I got a list, Rob. We're gonna start 1 to 10.
Oh, I've seen it.
Oh, that's true.
We're
We're
really,
really
really good.
good.
Really good at the list.
Yeah, it's quite
This is a
wonderful.
long list. We'll talk about it. I'll do it. My advice will be about a thing that you're all already doing by being here, and I think it's really key in this space right now, is to maintain and grow your network. And I think that's common advice in a lot of spaces, especially in the gaming side where we come from, because it's a small industry, but the AR space is like the tiniest box of people possible. Like when we go to AWE last week, like we're tripping over people we know, because we literally see the same people everywhere, because there's not a lot of us doing this full time right now. And a lot of the interesting things you're going to have happen are going to come from people that you know, or that reach out to you, or that want to talk. Because we all talk to each other. We have standing business meetings ourselves with many of our what would traditionally be competitors, right? Like you'd say, oh, these people are also making AR games. You should hate them. No, we all love each other and want to help each other be successful, because right now we all need to figure out how to make this thing work to build this bright, beautiful future that I was talking about. And so for us, like we're sharing, business leads, we're sharing opportunities, we're sharing tips and tricks, we're playing each other's content, we're giving each other feedback. Like it's a very, very close-knit group right now that's building this stuff. And I would encourage you, if you want to find success in the space, a lot of that tends to come from building that network and doing that real work to be a player in the space, know who else is in the space, and connect with them. So I think a lot of our success has been built off of the back of growing that network and running into people that you know and turning that into business. I think it's really interesting. Like the other thing that we notice a lot is like your network kind of grows organically as you meet more people, because they move around a lot. Like you heard from Rob's story of like how he come from other places, and we've had several DevRel people we worked with that were at one company, and then another company, and then a third company. And it's like, oh, now we have a connection over here because we know this person and they like us and they want to talk to us about new opportunities from this place right now. So, don't burn bridges, of course, obviously, but grow that network. It will really pay dividends right now.
I guess I'll build on what everyone else is kind of saying as well, which is the AR ecosystem currently is very much a blue ocean. Part of the reason we are in this from a business point of view is that if you look at the gaming landscape overall, it's extraordinarily crowded right now. I joke that every day on Steam, there's an amazing game that's extremely polished, and the studio will probably shut down because they can't get enough sales. So for us, there was a real matter of, okay, well, what opportunity is out there to be noticed? And there's not a lot of gaming companies in AR, as Dustin said, and so that's a very unique opportunity for us. But it's not just gaming. It's probably almost any idea that you can think of that utilizes augmented reality as kind of the core feature set is a real business opportunity without a lot of competition, because it's such a new space. So that's maybe my advice, is if you have an idea, you should build it. Even if there's other people doing it, maybe build a better version of it. We built an ebook reader in 2015.
VR
ebook.
There's a lot of ebook readers. We did not build Kindle.
We did not build Kindle. We'd be richer. So we built a VR ebook reader, and everyone told us at the time that Amazon was going to kick our butts, so we kind of stopped building it, and Amazon never released a VR ebook reader. So, so if you have an idea, build it. I do recommend Lens Studio. I think Lens Studio is a very, very good AR tool, not just because they're like hosting us here and they give us money and stuff. Like I really like Lens Studio, and I advise using it. Like if I was going to start an AR game prototype, I would probably use Lens Studio. It's the fastest thing to start in, and you can really make your ideas come quickly, especially with all their new AI features. So so go build cool AR stuff and then make friends and share with them.
Words.
Snap creators too, Snap AR creators, it's very supportive. Again, small community, and the team, direct access to the team, which is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, learning community is fantastic, and it's literally what I do. But I mean, there is the AR community, like they said, is very small. Folks know each other. You go to any city, there's a pretty tight-knit group of people that do this, and you can find them, and they're usually really welcoming. My last piece is just kind of going off of what you said with Blue Ocean. It hasn't been figured out yet, not all of it. We are constantly sitting there being like, how can we do this better? And you know what, we do, because this is just so new. And so like, you can be the one to figure it out. And you can be the one who takes it another step forward. I use a lot of devices. I love XR. I've played with all of them. Obviously, I represent Snap, and I'm passionate about our products. And every day I say like, wow, I didn't know that was possible. This is cool. Like, I'm excited to see what we come up with tomorrow. And so like, there's not a lot of spaces that exist that are like that, where there's so much green grass. But this is one, and it is going to get so much cooler and so much better, and that starts literally, and I'm not just being corny, it starts in rooms like this. So I'm excited. I am.
So much cooler and so much better. Thank you, Raj, Julia, Dustin, and Blake. Let's give them a round of applause, please.